Confirmed. The National Security Agency collects your emails, calls, video chats, and social network details. Leaked documents outline the Prism surveillance program. All that and more this time on ThreatWire. Hello and welcome to this episode of ThreatWire. I'm Shannon Morse. Darren is on Hack Across America in Oregon this week. And this is, of course, your summary of what's threatening security, privacy, and internet freedom. And today, it's all about Prism. Darren, take it away.
Thanks, Shannon. The internet has been abuzz all week about this electronic surveillance program. The news broke June 6th by the Washington Post and The Guardian when 29-year-old Edward Snowden, former contractor to the CIA and NSA, provided classified documents to the top-secret Prism surveillance program. Now, Prism is what could be described as the successor to the terrorist surveillance program. That was an electronic surveillance program put in place by the NSA following the September 11 attacks in 2001. Then President Bush enacted it as an executive order under the name the Terrorist Surveillance Program, but it came under a lot of scrutiny since it authorized the NSA to monitor phone calls and internet activities of U.S. citizens without search warrants. So in 2007, that program ended, and in its place, the Protect America Act of 2007 and the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Amendment Act of 2008 paved the way for Prism, providing legal immunity to private companies that cooperate with the United States intelligence collection. President Obama and Congress renewed this in 2012. According to leaked documents from the Prism program, it enables the collection and analysis of email, video, voice, phone, and social networking communications by providers including Microsoft, Google, Yahoo, Facebook, Paltalk, YouTube, Skype, AOL, and Apple. Now, the document describes Prism as one of two programs to collect data under the FISA Section 702, the latter being the upstream program, which one node of which is the infamous Room 641A, from which the NSA used beam splitters, which are made up of glass prisms, to monitor internet backbone traffic from the San Francisco at&t building at 611 Folsom Street. Now, we know this thanks to a whistleblower and a former at&t technician who leaked the cooperation between the telephone company and the government agency. Another whistleblower, William Binney, who served more than 30 years with the NSA, describes Prism as a counterpart to the telecommunications monitoring, which, quote, could get most of it, but they couldn't get all of it. So in order to get all of the data, they had to go to the service providers to fill in the blanks. That's what the Prism program is for, to fill in the blanks. Snowden made a massive sacrifice in the name of freedom, taking responsibility for the disclosure. In a statement to the Post, he said, quote, "My sole motive is to inform the public as to that which is done in their name and that which is done against them." Snowden, who is currently holed up in Hong Kong, is seeking asylum, in his own words, quote, "asylum from any countries that believe in free speech and oppose the victimization of global privacy."
Thank you, Darren. Now, since the Prism story broke, several of the companies named have come under considerable pressure. The original Washington Post and Guardian stories stated that Prism collected data directly from the servers, a statement which has been refuted by those involved, of course. Namely, Google said, "Google cares deeply about the security of our users' data. We disclose user data to governments in accordance with the law, and we review all such requests carefully. From time to time, people allege that we have created government backdoor into our systems, but Google does not have a backdoor for the government to access private user data." Apple stated on All Things D, "We have never heard of Prism. We do not provide any government agency with direct access to our servers, and any government agency requesting customer data must get a court order." Microsoft also said, "We provide customer data only when we receive a legally binding order or subpoena to do so, and never on a voluntary basis. In addition, we only ever comply with specific orders or requests about specific accounts or identifiers. If the government has a broader voluntary national security program to gather customer data, we don't participate in it." Mark Rumfold of the Electronic Frontier Foundation states if these companies received an order under the FISA Amendments Act, they are forbidden by law from disclosing having received the order and disclosing any information about the order at all. With every company that has been scrutinized as being involved in Prism, it does come as a surprise to hear all of them denying knowing about it, especially after having James Clapper, the director of the National Intelligence, acknowledge its existence in a report by USA Today. Clapper calls the disclosures made about Prism reckless and says the surveillance activities published in The Guardian and The Washington Post are lawful and conducted under authorities widely known and discussed, and fully debated and authorized by Congress. Some lawmakers have started to speak out about Prism as well, such as Representative Jim Sensenbrenner, principal sponsor of the Patriot Act, who said this is well beyond what the Patriot Act allows. President Obama claims that this is the most transparent administration in history and has once again proven false. In fact, it appears that no administration has ever peered more closely or intimately into the lives of innocent Americans. There's even a fact sheet that has been published by Clapper's office outlining what this top secret program is and isn't. Darren, back to you.
I think it's apt that Twitter calls it a direct message and not a private message. You see, programs like Prism bring up the important question, is there a reasonable expectation for privacy online? Now, there are a few possible outcomes that I see here, and I'm not talking about legislation or hawk saber rattling. Rather, consider this. Okay, the notion that everything is monitored has long been widely accepted by the hacker-minded. It's just now that the bubble is burst for John Q. Facebook. That is until the news cycle moves on to the next tragedy, the next massacre that will feed the fear, and at that point, it's quite likely that most will compartmentalize this and find some way to rationalize and accept something that is ultimately out of their control and move on with their lives. Or, and perhaps this is wishful thinking, this will actually encourage online privacy innovation. You see, without a reasonable expectation, it's only those who fight for it that will have privacy. Surveillance-resistant technology has existed for decades. It's only a question of, does anybody care enough to use it? Now, here's the thing about Prism. There are far too many details for us to get into in this little program. There's so much being reported on about the NSA, Edward Snowden, his personal life and whatnot. We can only summarize what is being reported, but let me tell you, this is just the beginning of the information theater. If things like Bradley Manning and Julian Assange have taught us anything, in this age of intelligence, scrutinize everything. Volunteer nothing, and keep in mind that this billion-dollar database is susceptible to the same kind of deceit that everyone on the planet is. Lie.
Thank you, Darren. Now, last week we asked how you feel about giving up your encryption keys or passwords to authorities, no matter what the case. And our comment of the week comes from CJ Carter. He says you can always set your password to be an actual admission of guilt, of some crime, not necessarily the one that you are suspected of. Thus, being compelled to give it would clearly violate your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Based on this, it must be assumed by the government that such a password exists, and thus they are constitutionally constrained from requesting it. Now, this week we'd like to know how you feel about Prism. Do you feel that it violates your Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable searches and seizures? To our international audience, does this change how you feel about the US dominance of the internet? Now remember, you can subscribe in all the ways at threatwire.org and get involved in our Google Plus community. That's where our conversation continues all week, and we definitely hang out there all the time. Now with that, I'm Shannon Morris, and for Darren Kitchen, we'll see you on the internet.